Record Store Nation, welcome back to the Record Store. First off, before we even continue, welcome to fall, by the way. It is autumn here in Chicago. The leaves are falling. It's one of the best times of the year just because of all the junk food and pumpkin spice this and maple that. I always say, and I know Brian's going to rip on me because I'm talking about food on a music podcast, but I always say maple is underrepresented in the fall. Everybody does everything pumpkin, which is fine. I'm okay with pumpkin stuff, but man, let's get some more maple stuff out there. Anyway, this is the Record Store, so we are going to talk about music. First off, we have to thank our house band for that amazing intro. It's Ambidextrous Wipe. The Ambidextrous Wipe, if you recall, one of the hottest prog rock bands in the 70s and 80s. I don't even know if they're still around. There might be one or two members still alive, but Ambidextrous Wipe, just one of the greatest prog rock bands, like Jethro Tull. I think there might have overlapped some members with Jethro Tull. Anyway, the Record Store, you know the concept. It is over here, all the CDs, all the albums, and I went through a whole bunch of my vinyl. Man, I had some time off and I was able to go through the voluminous vinyl collection in the basement, and some of it is in such good shape. I was really pleased. Some of it was ruined from water damage and stuff, and I sadly, God, it broke my heart to throw some stuff out, but so much of it, like I had Damn the Torpedoes, I had Born to Run, Heaven Tonight, Cheap Trick, the original Pretenders album. I have all of those things on vinyl and in really good shape too. So I was really happy. I'm gonna have to get a turntable because some of that stuff, man, I can't wait to listen to that on vinyl with all the pops and all the typical sounds that come from vinyl. Anyway, this is the Record Store, and the concept is we grab an album at random, um, and talk about it. Do a little bit of research on the band or performer, and then talk about the songs, talk about whether it was as good as I recall it being from back in the day, or it might be something new. There's a whole bunch of new albums on the wall. Um, so it's just we grab something. And in many cases, this is very therapeutic for me. The Record Store is very therapeutic in a sense because I am such a music like junkie that I've bought so many albums. There's thousands of albums, seriously. I've bought so many albums that I just run out of time and I don't get a chance to listen to them when they're hot and I need to listen to it and I need to own it and have it, the physical media. And just some things get lost in the shuffle. And so there are many albums that we've covered. This is episode 48, but there's many episodes that we've covered where I've never even listened to the album. And this is an album today that I listened to maybe once or twice. And it wasn't anything that was extremely memorable. So I didn't really recall too much about it. But the album today is called Songs. Officially, it's called Songs from the Sparkle Lounge. It is the 10th album from Def Leppard. And can't believe we're 48 episodes into the Record Store and I have not done a Def Leppard episode. Really big fan of Def Leppard, one of the few big bands that I never got to see. But they're still on the road. They're still out there. So I probably will get to see them at some point, hopefully. And they're somewhat mostly original members for the most part. And honestly, in looking up doing the research for this episode, those guys aren't nearly as old as I thought they were going to be. So they must have been super young when they started out. Um, I figured they'd be in their 70s and 80s, but they were 50s and 60s for the most part. So they must have been super young when they started out. And mostly, like I said, mostly the original members for the most part, the key guys at least. Anyway, so this is episode 48 of the Record Store. It is the Sparkle Lounge, or as it's officially known, Songs from the Sparkle Lounge. It's the 10th album from Def Leppard. Came out in 2008. Like I said, I got it when it came out and only listened to it maybe once or twice. So obviously not very memorable at the time. Def Leppard, glam metal. I saw that was one of the descriptions. Hair metal was another description. Just a very wide appeal, I thought. I was a big fan. I thought they crossed over a lot of different rock genres, as it were, and had a lot of pop appeal too. So believe it or not, they formed in 1976. Man, I could not believe that. I thought for sure it was like well into the 80s when they formed, but they were already famous and huge well into the 80s. But they actually, the original guys got together in 76. Some early names that they had before they were known as Def Leppard was Atomic Mass. Chemical Reactor. I don't know. For me, both of those had like sexual connotations. They probably don't, but Atomic Mass and Chemical Reactor. I don't know. And then they were Def Leppard, and it was spelled DEAF, like deaf, and Leopard, Leopard, like the animal. So they were actually Def Leppard before they altered the spelling. I'm not sure if there's a trademark issue or whatever with that, but they achieved their fame and notoriety as Def Leppard, Leppard. So both words misspelled. So at one point they were honoring me and they were going as Def Leppard spelled correctly. So anyway, Brian is a big fan of me correcting spelling around here. So I when I was thinking back about Def Leppard, I think they pretty much, I feel like they owned the 80s in terms of rock. You know, they were one of the biggest touring bands in the world. They toured incessantly and they had huge tours too. They were like doing football stadiums and stuff. Um, and I feel like their hits, there were so many, there were dozens of hits that they had. And I feel like, you know, they're still around. They're nowhere near the sales, nowhere near the popularity. I feel like there's bands like the Stones, you know, that kept it going and can still fill football stadiums. Guns N' Roses, who I just saw not that long ago, can still fill Wrigley Field. U2, you know, there's certain bands that they just kept it going. But I don't know, there was something about Def Leppard that just kind of fell off a cliff in terms of the popularity. So I think they were every bit as big as those bands, but today not so much. And I think the difference is the fact that although they still kept putting out material and still kept putting out product, it paled compared to the stuff that they were doing in the 80s. So, and you know, there's no radio, there's no MTV anymore per se. I think that Def Leppard relied on all that stuff to get across and to get over, and it's just not there for them anymore. They were, like I said, they were huge on MTV. They had dozens of top 10 hits. The two big albums were Pyromania and Hysteria. Mega albums, multi-platinum around the world with those two albums for sure. Like I said, mainly the original members. Guitarist Steve Clark, who started with them, died in 1991 of a drug overdose. Another guitarist, Pete Willis, was kicked out of the band primarily because he probably would have gone down the same path, kicked out of the band for his alcoholism. So sadly, Steve Clark no longer with them, no longer with us at all. And so they got both of those guys either left they kicked out Pete Willis or Steve Clark passed away, replaced by Phil Collin, not Phil Collins as it were, but Phil Collin, and replaced by Vivian Campbell. And they've been the same since 1992. They've been that same five guys in composing Def Leppard since Viv Campbell joined in 1992. The key for me, I mean, the music is great and very catchy and very accessible, but the key for me for Def Leppard is Joe Elliott's voice. I just love Joe Elliott's voice. I think he is like the epitome hard rock singer. Just one of those voices that just captures my imagination. I just want to listen to that guy all the time. As you know, Rick Allen is the drummer, lost his arm in 1985, continued on. You know, in looking back on that story, you know, your first thought is, oh, he was all drunk and driving. And, you know, that's the automatic assumption, especially knowing that the one guy died from an overdose in Def Leppard. But the automatic assumption with him, if you don't remember the story very clearly, and let's face it, it was 30 years ago, you automatically think, oh, he was driving drunk. So it happens. And he lost his arm. But it sounded more, there was no indication of alcohol at all in the crash. And so there's no proof. There's nothing that says that. It's just the automatic, I think, rock and roll stereotype, rock and roll assumption. From the story that I read today and doing the research, it sounded actually like a road rage incident that went desperately bad for him. That some other guy was involved in, and it went horribly wrong for Rick Allen. So he ended up losing his arm. His story is very much about perseverance and spirit and attitude. And, you know, the fact that they wanted to keep him in the band, they wanted to do whatever they could to keep him in the band, adapt the drumstick or the drum kits rather, so that he could play a lot more with the one arm that he still retained, obviously, and his feet, his legs. And honestly, they haven't missed a beat, no pun intended, as far as Rick Allen never getting kicked out of the band or never being, told we can't use you anymore in that capacity. So, like I said, he started charities for other amputees, and so I give the guy a ton of credit. He's still with them to this day. And like I said, his story for me is a story of survival, spirit, and perseverance. Um, a couple things. Jim Steinman, this is a surprise to me and doing the research today. Jim Steinman, who we've talked about many times on the record store, a big fan of the late Jim Steinman and Meatloaf. Jim Steinman was brought in to produce Hysteria, but it did not work. The marriage of Jim Steinman and Def Leppard. And if you think about it, big, huge sound on both parts. Jim Steinman responsible for producing a big, huge sound and writing of a lot of great material, like along those lines. Def Leppard has a very specific and very traditional sound that they seem to always have. At least back then in the 80s, they had a very specific sound, very big sound. And I think a Jim Steinman produced Def Leppard album would have been fantastic, but for whatever reason, it didn't work out, and they divorced, and they did not actually work together. But he was brought in. It would have been very cool. So in thinking about Def Leppard and how they kind of fell off the map, the theory, and I believe I agree with this. The theory is that the rise of alternative and the rise of grunge helped push Def Leppard down the charts. They tried to kind of adapt a little bit. They went a little darker, and then they went a little pop, and then they recorded. They even went so far as recording with Taylor Swift at one point. But I feel like they never recovered the hits that they had. They never recovered the numbers. They never recovered the sales. They still tour to this day. They're still now. They're definitely not filling football stadiums. They did Wrigley not that long ago, but their tours are now. It's not Def Leppard per se. It's more of a 3 or 4 act bill, that they're a part of. So they're doing these mega bills where they're with Poison or Cheap Trick or Heart or Motley Crue or some combination of those types of acts. So they're still out there and they're still touring. They've done a handful of residencies in Vegas. So I give them credit. They're still out there. They're still plugging away. They're still, I'm sure, doing the hits. They've released a handful of albums in the last couple of years. They went into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2018. As far as this album, Sparkle Lounge, the reviews were pretty average. Joe Elliott, in interviews about it, said that the album sounds like early AC/DC and early Led Zeppelin. I don't know about that. There's a little bit that I could say. There's a little bit of references, and there's 11 songs on here, so I mentioned that in the reviews here and there. The album debuted on Billboard at number 5, didn't go any higher, but it did debut at number 5, so there's that. The critics said it sounded like typical Def Leppard sound, big hooks, big choruses, big production. Some panned it because it sounded the same, and I'll get to my thoughts on it here. It hit, as far as the other charts worldwide, it hit number 26 in New Zealand, 25 in Japan. I don't know why, but for some reason I feel like Def Leppard would be a big hit in Japan. I don't know. There's certain acts that cross over and they carry over in Japan, and certain acts don't. Like, I know obviously Cheap Trick was huge in Japan. I feel like Def Leppard should have been huge in Japan too. They probably were. It hit number 15 in Norway, but yet only number 118 on the charts in France. So it seemed like, although of course they did well in England because that's where they're from. So it was weird. Seriously, the Scandinavian countries, it charted very well. Like, it hit 15 in Norway, it hit high in Sweden as well. It hit in Denmark. It did well in Scandinavia, but not so much in the rest of Europe. So I'm not sure what it was about Def Leppard that carried over in Scandinavia and of course England, but not so much in France and Germany. So anyway, so this CD, I always talk about, does it have the lyrics? What kind of package is it? It came with a set of guitar picks, which I thought that was innovative. I'm not sure if I bought like some kind of special edition at Best Buy or whatever. Obviously, it was unwrapped, so I don't know. But it came with a set of 4 guitar picks inside, which was pretty cool. There's a booklet inside, but yet no lyrics. There's lots of pictures of the band spread out over numerous pages. I didn't need as many pictures of you, Joe Elliott. I love you. I love your voice. I think you're awesome. But I didn't need that many pictures of you guys, all of you. I could have used the lyrics, so it would have been a little bit less homework for me to have to dig through the lyrics on this and get them offline. It of course has the typical thank yous to the family and friends. They all bent over backwards thanking producer Ronan McHugh. No thank yous to Jesus. I thought that, side note, just putting that in there. The cover of this album, you've probably not seen it because this was not a huge chart topper, and not recently for sure. 2008, not that far back. But anyway, the cover of it is very much like a tribute to Sergeant Pepper's. It's very much like the collage of all the weird cutout pictures, and it looks very much like Sergeant Pepper's. So there are many famous people in here. There's probably, if I added, I don't have the patience to add up how many pictures are on here, but it's pictures, black and white and color, numerous, like probably roughly about 100 pictures on here of different people. So way more than Sergeant Pepper's actually, but it's that same style, that same motif. But some of the pictures, there's many pictures of them, the members of Def Leppard, in various ages. So as children, as adults, big hair, not so big hair. But some of the pictures in here, there's Bruce Springsteen, there's Abraham Lincoln. There's a bunch of monkeys. There's the, See No Evil, Speak No Evil Monkeys series in there. Not the monkeys, Mike Nesmith and Peter Tork and all them. There's the Statue of Liberty. There's Paris Hilton. And there are a couple of bobbies, like the British police officers. So anyway, just a weird hodgepodge of faces that you see on this album cover if you're really wanting to do some research and take a magnifying glass to it. So 11 songs, 39, just over 39 minutes. I did read somewhere that this is their shortest album. So I don't know, say what you will about that. So, all right, getting to the album itself. First song is called Go. And I do want to mention that the font, this is going to sound like a weird complaint, especially for a band that I really like. The font on the back of the album saying what the songs are is barely legible, barely readable at all. And inside, it's the exact same font in the booklet. So there was a handful of these songs. I'm like, what the hell does that even say? I can't even read that. So anyway, first song is called Go. That was easy. It's 2 letters. So I was able to make that out. So this starts with a traditional Def Leppard guitar to open. A little bit heavier, I would say, a little less poppy than what you might think of for Def Leppard. The lyrics are kind of political. So kind of talking about our leaders and the lies that they feed us. So I thought that was kind of odd to hear Def Leppard speak of that as a topic. Real good guitar here on Go. There's some really good guitar solos. Less reliance on Joe Elliott's voice here, which is not usually a good thing. But there are some of the traditional Def Leppard harmonies that I really like. That, to me, that's always been one of the most pleasing sounds about Def Leppard, is the amazing harmonies that they do. So Go, very driving song, a little bit heavier, almost like an industrial sound to it altogether. On this song. So Go, a nice start to the album. Like I said, slightly heavier, a little less poppy than what you might have been expecting from Def Leppard. So, all right, second song is called 9 Lives. I, for one, think that 9 Lives, the cat food company, should have created an ad campaign around this song, because come on, 9 Lives, a big band. Like even in 2008, I think Def Leppard was still kind of a big band at that point. I just think that was a match made in heaven. 9 Lives should have been doing, having Def Leppard endorse the cat food. So it starts with, this is a really interesting, I guess, conspiracy theory, if you want to call it that, but kind of an Aerosmith sound to it. And I say that's ironic because Aerosmith had an album by the name 9 Lives in 1997, an under the radar album for Aerosmith. But I just thought, wow, what a connection that this song kind of starts with this Aerosmith kind of sound to it. And also Aerosmith had an album by that same name in 97. So anyway, the first voice comes in on this song and I'm like, huh? What is this? It was a very gruff voice. Not our guy, not Joe Elliott for sure. Kind of a country-ish sound to it. And it turns out it's Tim McGraw. So I'm not sure, like I referenced before, they did some stuff with Taylor Swift trying to regain some relevance, in the 2000s, I guess. But they bring in Tim McGraw on this song. But then, of course, Joe Elliott comes in on the second verse. And I'm like, whew, okay. Nothing against Tim McGraw, but I'm not a country guy. I don't really know much about Tim McGraw other than the fact that he's married to Faith Hill. Not my style, not my kind of music. It was okay, I guess, but just really weird that he sings like literally like the first couple lines and then it goes to Joe Elliott for the whole rest of the song. So I'm like, if you're wanting to do a duet with Tim McGraw, I get it. You're trying to jump on the country, the popularity of country, but why not have him sing throughout the whole song and do a back and forth like Stevie Nicks and Tom Petty or something? I'm like, why did Tim McGraw literally sing about 4 lines and then it switches over the chorus and the whole rest of the song is Joe Elliott? So anyway, again, it didn't really do much for me. It's kind of a poppy Def Leppard song. They didn't need the Tim McGraw gimmick. That's pretty funny, actually. The Tim McGraw gimmick, they did not need it. The harmonies are great here. It's just the trademark Def Leppard sound. I think this could have been a hit. Nine Lives could have been a hit in the heyday. Had it been released in the heyday of Def Leppard, I think it could have been a hit. Not much depth to the lyrics here. Just a lot of playing card and gambling references. That's pretty much what the song is about. So literally McGraw opens it and that's it. It just goes to Def Leppard and Joe Elliott for the whole rest of the song. So, but decent song. Just I didn't understand the gimmick of using Tim McGraw here. So, all right, third song is called Come On, Come On. It starts with clapping, which can be a good thing. And they say come on, over and over again as the chorus. It's a sexy song. I'll say that. It's very simple. Talks about sparks, talks about making all of her dreams come true, talks about taking the ride of a lifetime, wink, wink. So just a very, of course, all the sexual metaphors in the song. So I lost count on how many times they said come on after about 200 times through the song. So I think this song was written to be an arena hit, an arena favorite. The intention was there for like the fists thrusting in the air and the lighters and everything. But honestly, it's just a really empty song for me. Lyrically, not much to it. And just the fact that, like I said, I think they say come on, about 1,000 times by the end of it all. I just lost count. Just kind of a their song at the third spot. So, all right, fourth song is called Love. Again, I do appreciate the fact that it was only 4 letters, so it was easy for me to read the terrible font on the back of the album. So it starts with this loud crash, and it gives way to like an acoustic strumming sound, sort of like a Stairway to Heaven kind of sound to it. Actually, that kind of acoustic, really low key. Very spare ballad, I thought. Joe Elliott is not singing to a girl. You would think, the song is called Love. You would think he'd be singing to a girl or about a girl or something. But he's singing about the concept of love, or actually more correctly, he's singing to the concept of love itself, which is kind of interesting. I am always a sucker for a good power ballad. One of my weaknesses, especially with these guys. But this is weird. It can't compare to their great power ballads. Have You Ever Needed Someone So Bad was probably the one that came to mind first for Def Leppard as far as their great power ballads or hair ballads or whatever you want to call them. So I think that was one of their great low-key songs, whereas Love, I'd say sing it to a girl, Joe Elliott. Don't sing it to the concept of love. I think this could have been reworked and it could have been a lot less abstract. In this form, the song Love, singing to the concept of love, was just kind of weird and awkward to me. Did not work. I considered it a flop. I would have rather had him sing to a specific girl. And, like I said, Have You Ever Needed Someone So Bad, that kind of style. So the song Love kind of an at the 4th spot. So, all right, 5th song is called Tomorrow. Got a reference, again, always the bad font here. I got to reference it here. I could not read it, could not make out what these letters were. Anywhere on the album, I could not read it. Inside, on the back, it was the same font, annoying. I wrote down what I thought it said. I thought it said Immorum. So I don't know how you get Immorum out of Tomorrow, but that's what it looked like. That's how crappy this font is. It looked like Immorum, which isn't even a word, of course. But I had to look up the track listing online, and I'm sitting here holding the freaking album, and I can't even make out what it is. So Tomorrow is the name of the song, and the 5th song. So it starts with Joe Elliott and the typical, Def Leppard harmonies. They sound great here. It's not a groundbreaking song. It is just that Def Leppard sound that the fans want, especially fans like me want. It has a very good guitar bridge, just a really good, appealing song. It has all the ingredients that make them so popular and made Def Leppard what they were. So, all right, that's the fifth song. We're going to take a break here. We're going to pay some sponsors, going to pay some bills. Stick with us, and we'll get to side two of songs from the Sparkle Lounge. At least I think that's what the font means and says. So we're going to get back to side two in just a minute. Stick with us on the Record Store, guys. We'll be right back. All right, we are back. Thank you to our sponsors. Thank you for Brian to Brian for splicing that all together and making me sound way better than I am. As we are covering Def Leppard's The Sparkle Lounge, or it sounds like a recliner, a Barca Lounger or something. Sparkle Lounge. I don't think it was meant as a parody of that. But the Sparkle Lounge, songs from the Sparkle Lounge, which is Def Leppard's 10th album, 10th studio album. They've done a handful of lives and they've done a handful of greatest hits at this point, which, man, a greatest hits album from Def Leppard's got to be like a triple box set at this point. So many great songs from back in the day, not as much in the 2000s, but definitely from back in the day. But we're covering the Sparkle Lounge here on the Record Store, and we're on side two. We're starting off, so far the first side has been kind of lackluster, just kind of there for me, and this coming from a Def Leppard fan, so yes, I can be objective. By the way, I do want to mention right here, it is September, it is the fall. We kind of referenced this at the beginning of the show, but we are gearing up for Rocktober. I want a Rocktober, as it were. And I will be telling you at the end of this episode kind of what that's going to mean. Rocktober, where the Record Store kind of takes over the network. So interesting. Let's see what that holds. So we'll talk about that at the end of the show. So we're on side two. Starts out with the sixth song on the album. It's called Cruise Control. Just kind of a dark, thrashy open to it. Very heavy on the bass. Another subject, that one of the earlier songs was political. This song is kind of religious, so not exactly in the Def Leppard wheelhouse. He's talking about God, he's talking about atoning, he's talking about souls. So did not ever see that coming from a Def Leppard. Do we want this from Def Leppard? That's a question that I was asking myself as I'm listening to this. I'm like, do I really want to hear Def Leppard singing about God and stuff? I'm not sure. I mean, if I like the band and I like the music and the vocalist, then sure, they can sing about whatever. But yeah, this didn't really fit for me. What do we want from Def Leppard? We want the double entendres. We want those harmonies. That's what I always want from Def Leppard, is those great harmonies. So this, to me, Cruise Control was just kind of an ill-fitting song in their catalog. Had some weird effects on Joe Elliott's voice as well in this song, and not needed. Again, you've got a singer with such a great voice like Joe Elliott. Don't mess with it. Just leave it alone. I can understand, by the time they're doing their 10th album and they want to do things a little bit differently, maybe I can understand where the thought comes from, but leave it alone. Joe Elliott is an amazing singer and great rock and roll voice. Just don't screw with it. So Cruise Control, a short song, which in my book just as well, because it didn't really do much for me. Did not need to hear them singing about atoning in my soul. So, all right, seventh song is called Hallucinate. Starts with the promising Def Leppard style. Very catchy sound to it. Great sound, great harmonies. Back to the pop sound of Def Leppard, I thought, with this song. The lyrics are all over the place, as they are with a lot of this album, actually. Again, the lyrics are pretty pointless on here. Not much will rhyme with hallucinate or hallucination, which they say both words many, many times. They say almost as many times as the word come on in that song, and come on, come on. They almost say hallucinate or hallucination as many times. So it's a catchy song. So there's that at least, but really not much to it. Hallucinate, definitely more about the music than about the lyrics. So, all right, eighth song is called Only the Good Die Young. It is not, I repeat, it is not a Billy Joel cover. My guess is it's about John Lennon, but it's very vague. It's an okay song, but I found myself, like, as I'm listening to it, I found myself way more focused on who is this about? It's very literally Only the Good Die Young, speaking about something very specific, but you really have to dig to get the subject matter out of it, and the clues, try to pick up on the clues of who it's about. So could have been about anybody, I suppose, but the clue, they say the word legend, they say genius, they say diamond in the sky. To me, that's the biggest clue, diamond in the sky. So it got me thinking about Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, which was a John Lennon song. So I think that's my best guess, because, like I said, it's just very vague. They don't go over the top with it being about John Lennon, or mentions of, I don't know, Beatles or Liverpool or anything that would really give it away. It would make sense, but they could have made it more obvious. Oh, but I say that, and I don't know if many of you guys know this, but Edge of 17 by Stevie Nicks is also a John Lennon song about John Lennon, about other topics in there as well. Stevie actually had an uncle that was named John as well, that died right around the same time John Lennon died. So Edge of 17 was kind of about both that uncle of hers and John Lennon. So that was also very vague and not very obvious, but it just worked better, maybe because I did more research and I knew that story. But this is okay. This actually, Only the Good Die Young, the Def Leppard song here, is actually a good song. It was okay. Like I said, I just kind of found myself more focused on who is this about? What is this, and then once I got to Diamond in the Sky, that was what kind of solidified it for me. I'd be shocked if I'm completely off base on that and wrong. But I just thought it was interesting that the clues were very vague and not as obvious as you would think. So, all right, ninth song is called Bad Actress. It is not about Tori Spelling or Lindsay Lohan. That was the first couple bad actresses I could think of. It's not about them. It's a very fast, energetic start to the song. It is kind of a rant about crappy actresses. There's no veiled emotional meaning about this song. I think there is something veiled here, but it's not. It's very openly saying she can't sing, she can't dance, she can't talk, but she does have perfect teeth. So there was that. And very mean spirited. He says that she can't fit in her pants anymore. So just written by Joe Elliott. So I'm thinking he had a fling with some actress that went really bad, and this is the mean result of that encounter or that dating or whatever. So I had to put it on pause and look this up to see, what was the dating history of Joe Elliott, or, maybe if it was a one night thing or something that's not going to be online. But the two names that popped up, aside from two women that he was married to, Bobby Tolsma is one of the women, and Denise Dakin is the other one. So these are two names that I'd never heard of. They're certainly not famous Hollywood actresses or anything. So Bobby Tolsma seems to be the name that would fall right into the time frame of when this album came out. So, and I shouldn't laugh because she recently passed away, but Bobby Tolsma, the relationship was very volatile with her and Joe Elliott. There was, there was physical fights that happened. There were arrests that happened. There was no sign that she was an actress. So that much I couldn't say, is that Bobby Tolsma, not necessarily an actress per se, but it was a volatile relationship that her and Joe Elliott were having, and they broke up in the time frame of when this song came out. So I'm guessing the song could be about her, although I don't know if she was an actress or not. Denise Dakin just was very under the radar. She was not an actress. There was no great stories around her or anything. But anyway, so it could be about Bobby Tolsma. It could just be some fictional thing altogether. But Bad Actress, the 9th song. So, all right, 10th song. One of the few highlights on the album. It's called Come Undone. And it was not a Duran Duran cover, because I know that's going to ring a bell for some people. So Come Undone. The font on this one, it looked like it said Gone Madonna. So I'm like, well, that's way more letters than Come Undone. But Gone Madonna is not the name of this song. Again, it's this stupid font that just was so troublesome and problematic for me. So anyway, a strong open to the song, the normal Def Leppard open to me. Stayed very true to the Def Leppard sound. So for me, it was a win. Real catchy song, great vocals, great harmonies. Unlike Bad Actress, on Come Undone, Joe Elliott is praising his partner for being there for him when he needs her the most. So I appreciated this song. I appreciated that it sounds 100% like a song from their heyday, from back when Def Leppard was really hot. Again, not a super deep song, Come Undone, but just very catchy, and much more appreciative of his lover and his partner in life than Bad Actress, that's for sure. So one of the highlights of the album. And then the 11th song, the final song on the album, is a song called Gotta Let It Out. I'm sorry, Gotta Let It Go. Now I'm confused. So 11th song is called Gotta Let It Go. When I went to look up the lyrics, it kept taking me to Let It Go. I'm like, no, it's called Gotta Let It Go. So on Def Leppard's very first album, see, this is where the confusion comes in. On their very first album from way back in the day, in the 70s, there is a song called Let It Go. And so this song on their 10th album is called Gotta Let It Go. So they have a song called Let It Go and a song called Gotta Let It Go. So it was tough for me to find the lyrics. I had to keep on specifically looking for Gotta Let It Go. So finally found it. It starts with this muffled sound effect to start the song, but it's an engrossing open. I thought it was a little bit subdued. The whole, couple first minute or so, it's a very subdued sound to it, and you're waiting for it to kick in. You know that it's coming, and it does, and it works. It's really good. It's just a really strong finish for this album. It's the Def Leppard sound, but it's very driving, slightly different for them. So here, I think they did achieve something in trying to go a different route and trying to go a different approach, mixing things up a little bit. I think the muffled sound gimmick actually worked here. Normally, I don't like stuff like that, but here it did work, because then when it kicked in, it turned into something really good. So it has something to do, Gotta Let It Go as a song. It's got something to do with the Perils of Fame, but again, very vague. What listening to this album closely really taught me is that Def Leppard's lyrics, they're never going to be mistaken for U2 or Bob Dylan or anybody with very deep lyrics. So they're never going to be mistaken for them. Just very, just on the surface, just some words to make it work so that they can actually do the songs. So, and give Joe Elliott something to sing. So, like I said, something to do with the Perils of Fame, but a really vague notion. The music is really good, and Joe Elliott sounded great. So, Gotta Let It Go, one of the highlights on the album to wrap up the album. So overall, 11 songs, not much to it. I gotta say, just kind of there as an album. So as much as I like Def Leppard, I can understand why they're not as big as they used to be, because some of the stuff that they've been releasing since the heyday has just been kind of there. So anyway, that is it. That is the Record Store. I want to thank Brian. I want to thank our sponsors, obviously, and thank you guys for listening. And so what I teased about Rocktober, so we're calling it I Want a Rocktober. There's going to be actually today's episode kind of hints a little bit as what the theme is going to be for October. So we're going to have a couple episodes about a specific genre, as it were, which today maybe could have fallen into, but we'll see. So that'll be revealed throughout the month of October. And this TRS takes over the network in October. So a little less wrestling, a little bit more music. So there'll be a lot more of me. So I'm sure some people will like that, some people not so much. So, but there will also be a special episode towards the end of October where Brian and I count down our favorite albums of all time. And it'll be interesting to see, will we have any overlap? I think there is, from the best of my knowledge, I think there's going to be one album that we possibly overlap on. So it'll be a typical, a traditional Cool Kids countdown in a sense that we're each going to make our list of our top 10 and then crunch them and see if there's any overlap. So very good likelihood that it'll be an album at number one, and then the rest will be specific albums on each of our parts. So to see if there's any that we share other than that number one spot, which I have a strong feeling I know what it's going to be. So anyway, so get ready for Rocktober. I Want a Rocktober is the traditional title for it. And if you're a Patreon, stick with us. You're going to get to hear the favorite song from the album, The Sparkle Lounge by Def Leppard. Otherwise, we will see you in Rocktober. And don't forget, I have fun everywhere I go. We'll see you next month, guys. All right, Patreons. Gotta say, thank you so much for being Patreons. Thank you so much for supporting us and our mad endeavors as to what we do on the network here, whether it's the wrestling shows or the music shows. I swear, I feel like I'm in heaven when I literally can go to the record store. Not recording this, which is also known as the record store, but I do feel like it. I'm in heaven when I do this too. But I feel like when I can get to Rolling Stone, which is my favorite record store, superstore in the Chicago market, which is just outside of Chicago. So I don't want to be official because some people get pissed off when I say Rolling Stone is in Chicago. It's really not. It's Harwood Heights, but it's right outside of Chicago. Like you could probably walk to Chicago from there. But anyway, when I get a moment, when I get time to go to Rolling Stone, I literally can be in there for like an hour just looking at all the different stuff. It's still one of those superstores like Tower Records was, Virgin Megastore was, which sadly those are all gone. pretty much all replaced by Amazon right now. Which I will use Amazon. I'm not one of those, where I boycott Amazon. So, but I love going to Rolling Stone. I can get out there maybe once a month or so, maybe a little bit less often than that. Easily a half dozen or more times a year for sure. When new stuff comes out, I find myself there. What's new? The Who, there's a new remastered version of Who's Next that I have to get. And the new Pretenders album is out as well. Just got a chance to see them open for Guns N' Roses, and they sounded phenomenal. As I said to some of my friends during that show, because I was texting during the show. Chrissy Hynde has no business sounding as vibrant and as energetic and as powerful as she is at roughly 70 years old. She just sounded amazing. And obviously, the Pretenders is an act where there is only the one original member from the band. Two of them are passed away. Martin Chambers, the original drummer, was with them for a long time, came back to them and is no longer with them again. Not dead, but no longer with the Pretenders. But they're still calling themselves the Pretenders. And the band, at this point, when a band does that, does that become like a tribute band at that point? Because it's three completely other people plus Chrissy Hynde. So can they still be the Pretenders? I mean, they are legally. They're touring and calling themselves that. So anyway, that has nothing to do with today. Today is about Def Leppard and what is my favorite song from Songs from the Sparkle Lounge with its horrible font and just average sound to this album. So kind of slim pickings here as far as what I picked. So I'm going with Gotta Let It Go, the final song on the album. It has the traditional Def Leppard sound with just enough tweaks to it to make it sound a little bit different. And it worked. It was between Tomorrow was one of the songs. Come Undone was another one of the really good songs on this album. But other than those three, there really was kind of slim pickings on the rest of it. So it was okay. Wasn't horrible, just kind of there. In terms of comparing this album to Pyromania or Hysteria from back in the day, no comparison. Like, just this song was just out there, or I'm sorry, this album was just out there, not nearly as good as those classics from Def Leppard. So gotta go with Gotta Let It Go. Just like I said, not much of an album. I can see in listening to this and knowing that the rest of the stuff that they've done either right before this album or since this album is about the same quality, I can see where they've really fallen off. And so that's why they're not packing Soldier Field anymore. And they're not, they're doing the smaller venues. They're doing the residencies in Vegas, which would be cool, to see Def Leppard in a smaller venue would be very cool. Hell, Def Leppard at Wrigley would be cool for me. But I would need it to be like a greatest hits tour, basically. I would need it to be unlike the Guns N' Roses show that I just saw at Wrigley, which was I swear, maybe there were 7 or 8 songs in a 3-hour set by Guns N' Roses. There were like 7 or 8 songs that I knew, and otherwise it was like all deep cuts, which it actually worked because they sounded amazing, and it was a really good show. But for Def Leppard, I would need it to be, those 24 hits that they had in the 80s and 90s, because that's what I want my Def Leppard to sound like. So anyway, so the song I'm going with for the favorite song on the album is Gotta Let It Go. Enjoy it, you guys, and we will see you in a couple weeks for I Wanna Rocktober. We will see you then, guys. Have a great day.